Welcome to the Saxon Show, your countdown to the future. First, I want you to take down my phone number in case you want to call. The number is 501-437-2963. In case you didn't get it, here it is again, 501-437-2963. Sorry, but we can't accept collect calls. Tonight's topic is the Marching Morons. It's from the Survivor, Volume 3. The articles from Harper's and Godey's Ladies' book are along with the editorial in that same volume. The Marching Morons is the title of a classic science fiction novelette by C.M. Kornbluth. It can be found in most any library in the book Best Science Fiction Stories, 1952, and has been published in paperback. The story takes place several hundred years in the future, but is a shockingly realistic picture of our own times. Kornbluth must have been a real optimist to put it so far ahead. Actually, the low level of intelligence in 1978 would be enough to doom world civilization, even if my other projections were inaccurate. Basically, the story deals with a person who goes to sleep under anesthesia in our time and is awakened in the far future. He has shown that the Earth is flooded with morons and the average IQ is 45. U.S. tests have gone out of fashion now, scores have become so low. The overwhelming majority are unfit for any useful work, so the able future types are their virtual slaves. The population of the world is 5 billion. Ours in 1994 is 5.5 billion. The main reason given for the problem was that the intelligent left childbearing to the ignorant and the IQs went down more and more as the dummies procreated increasingly. What with our own intelligent classes having fewer children and the faggots taking more good genetic material out of the gene pool, our morons are marching today. Kornbluth's heroes believed the problem would have been solved by more of the intelligent reproducing. I disagree. The problem would have and could have been solved in our time if the less intelligent had been sterilized. The idea of the two classes trying to outbreed one another could only lead to the surplus population which was and is now the actual basis of the problem. The story is hilarious but will make you squirm to see how close it fits our own time. If you haven't already read The Marching Morons, do so and you will better understand the following. The Marching Morons will make you think of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, see Volume 1, page 139, and my own editorials on dummies, Volume 1, page 64 and 84. It has been broadcast increasingly that college entrance scores are getting lower all the time. Now predictions are out by the year 2000, Americans won't be able to read at all. The TV commentators say this is the fault of television. As bad as most TV is, this simply isn't true. Children attend school for 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. Aside from a few non-reading subjects, any normally intelligent child would pick up the reading of basic English in a few months, simply by exposure. I learned to read long before I went to school. From the age of 4 on, I would ask my parents and brother and sister what certain words were in comics and in the Sunday funnies. I just picked up the skill gradually as a matter of course. My mother had bought a complete set of the works of Mark Twain and read to us nightly from Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and on through Pudd'nhead Wilson. Both she and my father were raised in Arkansas and had both graduated from the 8th grade in one-room ramshackle country schools. Mom never read a book on her own except the Bible, and Dad only read Western pulps. But they could read as well as anyone. They were simply peasants with no intellectual leanings. By modern standards, they were ignorant rednecks, and their speech and accents were crude. But they had native intelligence. Grandma on my mother's side couldn't read her own name, but her children had the opportunity, and like it or not, they had to take advantage of it. I remember either Mom or Aunt Lydia telling of not paying attention one day, and the teacher threw a chestnut at her, and she had a lump on her forehead for 3 days. In those times, kids were sent to school to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. Discipline was harsh, and if a child simply wouldn't learn, he was sent home and pronounced feeble-minded. Thus, parents always sided with the teacher, and the children learned whether they wanted to or not. On my first day at school at PS 82 in Brooklyn in 1938, things went well enough as my teacher began with the ABCs, which I hadn't learned. I knew words, but what was the use of the separate letters? While I was learning the ABCs, I was reading the first grade reader, which I wasn't expected to get into for several weeks. Its main story went something like this. The red squirrel ran up the tree and got an acorn. Then he ran down the tree and dug a hole. He put the acorn in the hole and covered it. It was certainly on a higher level than See Spot Run, but I didn't care for the plot. I told the teacher I wanted to read about knights and sword fighting instead, and she told me the book was for learning to read, not for fun. She also said parents shouldn't teach their children to read because that was the teacher's job. I told Mama, and she said the teacher was a fool, but I shouldn't tell her so because she was a Yankee and didn't know no better. Actually, both the teacher and Mama were right in their own ways. In a one-room school with all 8 grades being taught to children of various ages by one teacher, a child could proceed at his own pace. One child could be learning 3rd grade arithmetic and 5th grade reading and 2nd grade geography and still be listed as in the 4th grade on his report card. In the city schools, however, one teacher taught one group of children of the same age the same level of every subject. Also, the whole class had to study the same chapter at the same time. So when the teacher was teaching the other kids how to read the squirrel story, I was shooting paper wads with a rubber band. I will proceed to prove that the one-room, multi-grade schoolhouse gave the best primary education. However, I don't mean to imply that the so-called progressive schools, working on somewhat similar lines, are anywhere as good. They are playpens. The children do what they want to. If they would rather play with clay or cut out paper dolls, that's what they do. In the old one-room schools, the child might work at various grade levels, but he didn't play except at recess. Come arithmetic time, he might be on the 2nd grade level while the child next to him was on the 3rd, but they both studied arithmetic. They had no choice as to subject, only the level of the subject. And rather than being forbidden to copy one another's work, those who knew more were expected to help those who knew less. Concerning arithmetic, when I was in the 3rd grade in Chicago, I was sick and missed a couple of weeks when the teacher was giving a course in a kind of multiplication. I came in on the day of the test and hadn't learned how to solve the problems in the test. Somehow I figured out a different method and got all the answers right. My teacher admitted I got all the answers right, but I got a 0 for not doing it her way. I was so furious I never learned any more arithmetic while in grade school. In future tests, I just figured out my own methods and got barely passing scores from then on. Of course, I still did well in reading. At age 11, I was on a first-year college level of reading and comprehension. I was ahead of my class at the time, but it's a fact that today the average first-year college student reads and comprehends below the level of the average 11-year-olds of my day. I was quite sickly, so I was 16 when I got out of grade school. They seldom skipped students then, so if one missed a lot of school, he had to make up the time regardless of how much he knew. I didn't bother to go to high school. I would have been 3 years older than the first-year high school students. But also, I knew that most high school students were stupid, and the curriculum was Mickey Mouse. A later GED test, about 1955, showed I had an overall score of 85%, whereas 70% was passing for the average high school graduate. Now, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that the achievement levels were going down by the year. I could see them go down. I wasn't necessarily smarter than the people of my own age. Younger people were just less competent. I found this out when I was urged by a teacher I met to go to junior college at the age of 26. I was older than most of the students, but I was shocked at their ignorance, since they had graduated high school but were less educated than I. Wanting to take German, I found that I knew nothing of sentence structure. This knowledge was essential to learning a foreign language, so I had to take dumbbell English. I was amazed to find that the other students in that class were there not from technical ignorance, but because most of them couldn't even read at a 5th grade level. How did they graduate 8th grade and go through high school? This was in 1959. In my college entrance test, I got over 90 percentile in English usage and only 20 percentile in math. I had decided to take algebra, but the teacher threw me out of the class, and I had to take dumbbell arithmetic. In one semester, I rose from 20 percentile to 60 percentile with a B. But here's the clincher. The other students in dumbbell English and math showed little, if any, improvement. They had had the exposure which I had lacked, but they simply didn't have the brains to learn. Again, this was in 1959. As the years have gone by, our youth has had more exposure to knowledge than anyone in history, but they are virtual morons and their ability to function socially is lessening each year. Lest you think this is my typical raving, I have below comparisons of the average intelligence of children of the 19th century. Following are 2 pages from the letter columns of Harper's Young People, December 19, 1882. It was written for children from 3 years to about 13, since those older were more into formal education or already working by that age. On reading the first part, notice the vocabulary and the expectation that many of the little readers could actually play the Christmas carol advertised for later. Following are the letters of little children and their answers by the postmistress. You might expect some spelling was corrected, but the words were those of the children. Grace and Mabel D. were probably about 8 or 10, yet their vocabulary would pass muster in any modern college. The 3 boys asking about fighting were answered by a woman, not an empty-headed liberal bitch of today who would have advised them to give the underprivileged attackers anything they wanted. Could your 9-year-old write such a description of living in Italy as did the 19th century American girl Mamie B.? Harry J. was just an average boy of his day, but his exuberance and natural love for his family members would be refreshing today compared to our bored children who see their relatives as only a drag. Edna P.S. did not whine for money to buy gifts. She wanted ideas on how to make them for her loved ones. Where are the Ednas of today? Athelstane K. 7 could not only write, but he could read Nan, a children's story in Harper's Young People with concepts and the vocabulary few high schoolers could get through today. 8-year-old Edith L's letter is charming but unexceptional for her era. The same goes for that of Oliver P. 7. Now Gracie Emerson M. read Harper's Young People to herself at the age of 5. Her reference to her ability to type is to be believed. However, she admits her papa typed the letter. I suppose it was an old Oliver. Child could use the Oliver when it was new, but as it began to wear, tiny hands could not manage the increasingly sticking keys. Yet I have no doubt the words were hers. The last entry, a memorial to Eddie Schiffler, paints a picture of a boy the kind of which made our nation great. The universal lack of his kind today has doomed world civilization as surely as would a full-scale nuclear war. An example of our government's acknowledgement of the imbecility of the average American, the J.T. Baker Chemical Company and most others have sent restriction lists to all of their representatives. Such lists are aimed mainly at potential illicit drug manufacturers. An addendum to the Baker list, having nothing to do with narcotics, is the injunction: do not sell carbon disulfide, carbon tetrachloride, any cyanides, turpentine, potassium hydroxide, which is wood lye, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, any nitrates, any chlorates, hydrofluoric acid. Skipping to another subject of 1860 is a selection of editors' rejects. Aside from ignorance to spelling and Cora and Dora Dodd's flaunting their vocabulary, most of these rejects are far better, more intelligent, and full of sheer wit and comedic talent than is printed in the best publications today. I'd have given $10 simply for J.J.'s line from the Slayin' Party, the night before the snow had snowed. Although I can sympathize with the editor of that time, I only wish most of the pieces sent to me had a tenth of that talent shown here. Now we'll go back to 1861 when the intelligence was even higher. Godey's Ladies' Book and Magazine carried a course in chemistry for the young. Again, pre- and early teens with little formal education. Notice the writer calls the experiment a simple case, college chemistry today. And could a modern American go to the philosophical instrument maker and have such an apparatus made for a child's experiment? Passing on to lesson 20, I reproduce only the first paragraph listing the required ingredients for another experiment: phosphorus, ammonium nitrate, nitric acid, and oil of vitriol, which is sulfuric acid. All of these are impossible to get by children today. Nowadays, they lack judgment and skill to be trusted with such chemicals. Although most of the humor in the 19th century does not appeal to us due to different frames of reference, Miss Prim on Babies, Godey's, 1872, written by a woman, is a monologue Joan Rivers or any other comedian could use commercially. We of the 20th century have been led to believe that women of the 19th were bubble-headed dummies, protected from reality, and able only to read and understand cooking and flirtatious romances. The average woman of the 19th century, with any education at all, was far more intelligent than the men and women of today. Imagine Woman's Day printing a complete description of the manufacture of gunpowder. The average woman of today could barely read it, much less understand it. Yet it is a treatise worthy of inclusion in any modern textbook on explosives. So you see, although we have an accumulation of knowledge undreamed of then, our people are mental midgets compared to the 19th century Americans. Our only hope of survival in the near future is to abandon modern concepts of progress and the idea that we are somehow superior to our ancestors. The average modern American is a feeble-minded degenerate and is being led to the slaughter. The morons are marching, even now, and if you march with them, the death of the inferior will be your just and inevitable reward. Okay, here I am again. The phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And for 10... Oh, here's another call. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey. I'm from New Orleans.
Hi, Jeffrey.
I'm an admirer of Ayn Rand and a very strong follower of objectivist ideas.
Good.
My problem with you, however, is this. You made a statement on one of your programs that certain people, such as the inferior or the unfit or those who deserve not to be born, should be eliminated. Would you explain the standard by which you arrive at these terms and explain how you got to this position?
Well, first of all, I would say that anyone getting welfare should have first to submit a doctor's certificate of sterilization. And I arrived at that standard, or at those opinions, through living with this kind of people for so long, being among them and talking to them and dealing with them. And I don't know your status in life, but my status was, you might say, lower class. So I know those people on an individual basis.
I see. Why are they unfit? What's particularly the doing?
Well, if we have to take care of them, they are unfit. It's as simple as that.
Well, what happens if you're forced on welfare because the government has put you in a position where you can't do anything else by virtue of prohibiting your job opportunities, etc.?
Well, did you hear me yesterday?
Yes.
Well, my self-employment for anyone, I didn't depend on the government for a job. Anyone can go out and make his own work. In fact, that's what most of my books are about, creating your own employment opportunities. The government never had a chance to restrict me in my employment.
Well, unfortunately, it did in my case, since I'm a blind person.
Yes.
And because unfortunately most employers don't hire blind people even today,
yes.
Government sort of has a monopoly on most of the jobs, and when they do that, they make the blind people dependent on the government and also dependent on sighted people for their support.
Well, you are a special case. I'll have to admit that, and you wouldn't fit into that category.
Absolutely right, which is why I'm a supporter of Ayn Rand, etc.
Yes.
And I'd like to know how you can get a copy of your magazines on tape or other formats.
Well, I'm very sorry, but we haven't grown to that position. It would be nice if we could have them in Braille or on tape. The nearest thing we've got to tapes is these nightly talks. Mm-hmm. And, no, we just don't have them on tapes. I'm very sorry.
I see. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, here the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas. And for $10, you'll get the information packet. Get back to that. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Yes, Wayne Schulteis in Northeast Texas.
Yes.
Have a question and wonder what your opinion would be about the David Koresh situation. I'm an amateur radio operator.
Yes.
And there were several amateur radio operators in the compound there, and wonder what you feel like individual communication, such as amateur radio or other type of hobby radio, might have upon the future survivalist, or the effects, or what good that can be used in a future situation where things deteriorate?
Well, I don't know how it would apply to the David Koresh situation or how it could have applied. So let's just pass over that. But I would say the ham radio operators are going to be extremely informative when the system collapses. They'll probably be the only way to get news, or at least reliable news, because you'll be talking to guys who are telling you what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's how I found out about your program, matter of fact, was through amateur radio on the 80-meter band. I'm located in northeast Texas, and of course there's several folks around the country keep in contact locally here and all across the United States that operate there on that frequency, and I monitor them a lot, and I've heard them talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's where we heard about your program at. As a matter of fact, it was from the 80-meter amateur radio band.
Well, I'm glad. Maybe you could tell our listeners how they might get an amateur radio situation.
Well, the amateur radio band, ham radios it's called, has several classes of license. You can start out with very basic theory.
Well, just a beginner. Now, who do you go to apply?
Very low code, 5 words a minute.
Mm-hmm.
They have a no code even, but that range is limited to what's called VHF frequencies, which is really basically just local communications.
Well, what I mean is, say a person would like to become introduced to the world of ham radio operation, what would be his first step?
Well, Radio Shack is not promoting a certain company, but as far as easily off the shelf, has information booklets for the basic beginner that's real good.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a Radio Shack within driving distance of everybody.
Right, and it's a real interesting hobby, and you, like yourself, you get to listen to programs of various viewpoints that the so-called secular liberal media doesn't allow, or unless you're in an area where there's a lot of radio talk shows, that you don't hear a lot of conservative viewpoints.
Yes. Well, you see, the other stations are commercial stations, and I don't think anyone would want to advertise on my radio station. Well, maybe a few, but certainly not your average product.
Well, ironically, I own an FM radio station, and if I could get your program, I might just carry it.
Well, bless your heart.
So, I'll get in touch with you possibly during non-broadcast hours or something like that.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people listening and want to talk to you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Bye for now. Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. The address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas. And $10 will get you the information packet consisting of U.S. Militia, the only magazine for community defense, Shoestring Entrepreneur, and the Koresh thing, and you'll get a $5 refund for either subscription. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Hi, Kurt. Yes, I'd like to know, what do you think of the MAC 90, and is it any good for homestead protection?
No, I wouldn't have a thing like that. For home, if you want a pistol, get you a regular 38 police special. You can buy them real cheap in any pawn shop or gun show. They take your standard ammunition. You can get them for $100 in many cases, and they have very few moving parts. They're not going to break down. And for someone trying to get into your home, or someone who already gets there, you can't beat that. I mean, the 38 round is going to stop anybody. And I've heard of people using those MAC 9s, and they're real noisy, but I wouldn't bother with one of those. They cost too much.
I mean, for something, if you have a few acres of land. And
well, now, like I said the other night, I'll give you my motto. Let's see now. What was my motto? It was sort of like a little doggerel. Oh, here it's been handed to me. A pistol. Okay, well, it's a pistol for the bedroom, a shotgun over the door, a 30-06 for reaching out. You don't need any more. Now, if you've got those 3 guns, you are set for anything that might give you trouble.
Where would you suggest to get a food storage supply started?
Well, get your food storage supply would best be gotten at your feed and seed store, where you can buy 50 pounds of corn for like $3.50 and 56, I think, of pounds of rye for $7.33 tax included, or 56 or 60 pounds of wheat for about the same price. And then if you get a Corona grain mill, you can grind those, and then you'll never go hungry. Now, if you'd rather buy it from your health food store, it costs about twice as much, but it is organically grown, and so it's really not hard at all. But you start out with your basic grains, and then you might have, if you got any land at all, you might have a couple of dozen chickens that give you all the eggs and the meat you want, and then rabbits, that's something else too.
Okay, I'm going to send away for your information packet on Monday, and I want to say thank you for this program, and just thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, and I suggest you think seriously about getting a set of the bound volumes of The Survivor. That'll give you not only crafts, trades, cottage industries, but it'll tell you how your great-grandparents made it from day to day and set you up in business, and you'd be the favorite of your community. In fact, you might even be the lifesaver of your community.
Is that included in the packet?
No, but the packet describes them.
Oh, okay. So that will have a lifeline to the survivor?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kurt.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, the phone number again is 501-437-2963. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
This is Grover, Kurt.
Hi, Grover.
The ham radio operator that called about the Branch Davidians a while ago.
Yeah.
From what I found out, David Koresh on his satellite system had all the downlinks. He had a very sophisticated communication system.
Mm-hmm.
Mysteriously, day before the raid, his HF, VHF, UHF packet all was mysteriously sabotaged. He had a very good communication system.
Well, now, was it sabotaged from the outside or the inside?
It had to be. Everything went out at once.
Well, from the outside or the inside?
Inside.
Yeah. Well, do we know if the person who sabotaged it got out alive?
Well, I doubt that'll come out until several civil rights trials on down the road.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be waiting for it, Grover.
Well, the man who wanted to know there, I've been trying to get onto this ham thing pretty heavy because I couldn't understand why David Koresh didn't have any ham material, and looking into it a little bit deeper, come to find out they had a whole bunch, and it just mysteriously all went out at one time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Grover. Bye-bye. Okay, the the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. That's for your $10 information packet. And if you would rather buy, like Poor Man James Bond New Improved, it is $18 plus $4 postage and handling. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Hello, Kurt. This is Paul in Hickory. I had a remark about your opening talk you gave about morons on the march.
Mm-hmm.
And the unfit for survival shouldn't be allowed to survive.
They shouldn't be allowed to reproduce.
But shouldn't be allowed to reproduce, right?
Yes.
Our socialist political system is encouraging an aberration of Mother Nature's plan of survival of the fittest.
Yes.
We are encouraging the...
Not we. I'm not encouraging.
Oh, when I say we, I mean, I should catch myself.
Never use the collective as we.
Our supposed leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it that way. They are encouraging an aberration of Mother Nature's plan by encouraging these people that wouldn't survive on their own, that would probably starve to death, as they do in Africa and other places that they come from, by feeding them with our money. They're stealing our money in the form of taxes and feeding these people, and we can't have children. We can't have large families because we can't afford it.
Well, they're like cuckoo birds laying their eggs in other birds' nests.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what's going on. They're an alien culture being supported by the worst. They're the lowest culture, the most primitive culture on the earth, being supported by the most advanced culture on the earth. It's an aberration of God's plan and of Mother Nature's plan.
Well, what will in the next civilization will simply will have plenty of surplus to take care of anyone who can't take care of themselves, but they will have to be sterilized if they are on. If someone signs up for welfare, he'll have to produce a certificate of sterilization, and then the society can support him. He won't be reproducing himself or anything like that. And another law will be if you commit 2 felonies, you're not in prison for life. No, you're under the ground.
That's the way it should be.
Well, that's the way it will be. If it had been that way starting 50 years ago, we wouldn't have had anything that you would consider a social problem today.
This is correct. A lot of people, these gun controllers, seem to say that if everybody had guns, that it would be like the Wild West. Well, the Wild West wasn't that wild. Most people had to mind their manners because they knew if they got out of line, somebody would make them pay for it.
That's right. And in Hollister, Missouri, it's against the law not to own a gun. And most people in Arkansas have a gun. And when I was up on the Jerry Springer show in Chicago a few months ago, I got there to my hotel room at 12, and I was going to go on next day. So I watched the news all that day. And I saw that there was more crime in the city of Chicago than there is in the whole state of Arkansas.
Yes.
And they're not supposed to have many guns there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Washington, D.C. and Chicago and some of these places in New York are supposed to be paradises because they've got such stiff gun control laws.
Yeah.
Somehow what they say and what they do don't match.
Well, you see, they have nothing to do with it. The criminal decides if he's going to use a gun or a knife or a baseball bat. And unfortunately for the decent people, the criminal decides he's going to use a gun. And there's all kinds of ways for him to get a gun. And so it really doesn't matter what they say, because they, for the most part, are a bunch of idealistic ivory tower idiots.
That they are. It's preposterous to think that someone that's willing to kill you would be worried about some irrelevant little gun law.
Yeah, also, you see, if they could keep them from having guns, then they'd use knives. And if not a knife, then a blunt instrument or a car, or just beat you to death with their fists.
Or they do like they do in South America, down in Rio. They do muggings in groups of 50 to 200 people. Will go along and mug every European and American tourist they find, and the police run from them.
Yeah.
And most of these
Now,
folks...
don't give them ideas.
Yeah, I guess so. Shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that's okay.
But most of these people don't, down there, they're so poor they don't have guns, the ones that are doing this sort of thing. They just do it by sheer numbers, kind of like L.A. and during the riots.
Well, the people who are making such laws are insulated and isolated from reality. They simply don't know, and they're of a liberal frame of mind which says that everyone should be nice. I remember a TV interview several years ago. It was sort of a comic thing. They were asking little children to give opinions on the world's biggest problems. And so they asked this little boy how to bring peace to the world. And he said, well, if everyone would be nice to everyone, then we'd have peace. Well, of course, the kid was right. But that's not an adult answer. But you see, these people in Washington, they have the same level of intelligence that little boy had. And they think, like the little boy, that it can be applied. And, of course, they're just as naive as he was. Well, I'm sure he thinks different now. He's probably well-armed. But these liberals, they just as uneducated and unwise as that little child.
They're so ignorant, they're arrogant in their ignorance to the point of it's even hard for a normal person to grasp.
Yeah, well, let me interject something that might offend people, but the Bible says a child shall lead them. Well, we got children leading us.
We sure do.
And it don't work. I'd rather have an adult leading me, thank you.
Me too.
Of course, I don't know who my leader is. I don't need to. I don't need a leader. I want a kind of world where people don't have to have leaders.
Responsible people don't have to have leaders.
Right.
We don't need leaders. Responsible people don't need to be led around by the hand.
Yeah, well, they have encouraged the irresponsible to such an extent that they've swamped our system. And we don't have long. And, of course, if you've heard on the news, the stock market dropped 96 points, and the unemployment rate has risen, and the interest rates are going to rise. And everybody who bought like crazy over the past year because of low interest rates are not going to be able to finish paying for their houses and cars. So they're going to be on foot in the street, and it's going to get pretty nasty.
Yes, and some of those people, those very people that have bought into the stock market so heavily, are the people that call me and probably you and other survivalists nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are also the least able to survive in a hard, rough and tumble world where you have to make it on your own merit.
Well, they'll have to be adaptable and intelligent, because when it hits the fan, it's going to be every person for himself. It's going to be a very hard world. Now, these people who love the conspiracy theory, I think that they are really hoping that if worse comes to worse, they'll be taken care of in a concentration camp. Well, I'm telling them to learn to take care of themselves, because there's not going to be any concentration camps.
That shows you just how far down the tube our people have gone, that some of them would actually hope that somebody else is going to take care of them. They're lost. They're brainwashed and they're lost.
Well, they are. And there's going to be a terrible culling and an awful die-off all over the world. And I'd say about the 5.5 billion people we have, at least 4 billion are going to die.
Probably so.
But 1.5 billion, it would still be a pretty good, decent population, and they would be, for the most part, extremely intelligent and adaptable.
Mother Nature does her work.
Oh, yes. You can't fight Mother Nature for long.
Nope. Eventually, it'll tell on you. And I think Mother Nature's going to cull, like you said, cull a bunch of the unfit.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the number again is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. Send in your $10, get a $5 refund on either subscription. Great information package, you'll love it. And if you'd like to order the tapes, they're $25 for a week's shows, posted paid, or $6 each. That's to Jeffries Audio, P.O. Box 326, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And incidentally, some people might be interested. I got from the ATF today license renewal application, and my license is good until April 1, 1994, and the renewal fee is $90. I take it that's for 3 years, and so I'm going to renew it. I don't know what happened to that $600 a year thing, but of course, if you get in under the wire, then you're covered for the next 3 years. At least that's my understanding of it. And also today I got in Gurney's latest 1994 spring catalog, which I'd like you all to order. Now, got your pencils? Write down Gurney's Seed Company, 110 Capitol Street, Yankton, South Dakota, 57079. That's Gurney's, Gurneys, Seed, 110 Capitol Street, Yankton, Yankton, South Dakota. That's SD, 57079. You just send them a card, tell them that you want a seed catalog, and they'll send you the prettiest catalog that you've ever seen. Now, again, the number is 501-437-2963. So let's get a call in here. And if you would like to subscribe to the Shoestring Entrepreneur, which tells you how you can sell anything you can make or grow, just send $15 to P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And that will get you a bunch of back issues of The Survivor at no charge at all, and will also give you 10% off on all of my books and tapes. Then if you would rather subscribe to U.S. Militia, the only magazine of community defense, send $35 to P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And you'll start off with the first 3 issues, and you'll get 9 more in the mail. And I'm nearly done with issue 4. And if you'd like the information packet, that consists of a sample copy of Shoestring Entrepreneur and U.S. militia, also David Koresh's Last Testament. So where are the calls? The number is 501-437-2963. Okay, so I'll just read a little something. I'll wait for you people to... I was watching a movie on tape yesterday, Shangri-La, and part of it was from the High Lama. I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie, but it's it's a paradise place up in the Himalayan mountains, and it tells a whole lot about the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'll just quote the High Lama. Yes, that's the Lost Horizon. That's right, the Lost Horizon. I called it Shangri-La, but it's from the movie Lost Horizon. Now, the High Lama is saying, we have reason. It is the entire meaning and purpose of Shangri-La. It came to me in a vision long, long ago. I saw all the nations strengthening, not in wisdom, but in the vulgar passions and the will to destroy. I saw the machine power multiplying until a single weapon of man might match a whole army. I foresaw a time when men, exulting in the technique of murder, would rage so hotly over the world that every book, every treasure would be doomed to destruction. This vision was so vivid and so moving that I determined to gather together all things of beauty and culture that I could and preserve them here against the doom toward which the world is rushing. Look at the world today. Is there anything more pitiful? What madness there is, what blindness, what unintelligent leadership. A scurrying mass of bewildered humanity crashing headlong against each other, propelled by an orgy of greed and brutality. A time must come, my friend, when this orgy will spend itself, when brutality and the lust for power must perish by its own words. And when that time comes, the world must look toward a new life. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Oh, Mr. Saxon, this is Mr. Skoka here in Mentor, Ohio. I want to find out how many volumes of the survival book you guys is bound volumes. How many volumes do you have?
We've got 4 volumes. I'm working on volume 5, but don't hold your breath. But the 4 volumes would keep you fascinated until I do get volume 5 out. I'll eventually get them off. How much would that be?
Well,
they're $18 a piece unless you're a subscriber to Shoestring Entrepreneur or U.S. Militia, and in case you would get 10% off. So instead of $18, it'd cost you $16.20.
Oh, I see. Okay. You have a good program, so we listen. My wife and I listen to you every night.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, bye for now. Okay, again, the phone number is 501-437-2963. And so, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Lost Horizon. It starred Ronald Colman, and it was put out in 1937, and it was written by James Hilton in 1933. But he has our times pretty well prophesied in a sense. Of course, many people a long time ago could tell what was happening. Like, for instance, in U.S. Militia, I'm reprinting Lothrop Stoddard's The Revolt Against Civilization, which was printed in 1922, and he tells about why he could see that things were going downhill even then. You see, a civilization doesn't collapse overnight. But he could tell from what people were doing as far as downbreeding, even in the 1920s, that things were really going downhill, and he more or less predicted what we would have today, which of course is marching morons and crime and pollution and fantastic surplus population. So again, my phone number is 501-437-2963. And in case you just wandered onto the program and don't quite know where it is, it's 5.810 megahertz. And I don't know where the calls are tonight because I could hardly get a word in edgewise last night. They were coming in so thick. So, hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Hi, Kurt.
Hi.
This is Ed in Houston. I was wondering what your opinion is of the British Enfield rifles.
Well, they're a good rifle. Very good. I think they compare favorably with the Springfield 19.3. Mm-hmm. And they're a bolt-action rifle. And, of course, now I don't quite know what ammunition they use. Do you?
Well, that's another one of my questions. I think they just use the standard 30 caliber. It's a 303 caliber, but I think they'll use standard ammunition.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
It's possible to get those rifles brand new or unissued, still wrapped in cosmoline.
Well, that would be good. Have any idea how much? It's a 303 British ammunition.
Right. That's
now,
what
I don't know how common that ammunition is. See, that's your biggest consideration when you're buying a rifle. The reason I recommend the 30-06 is because it's a standard ammunition. You can get it any place where ammunition is sold.
Well, I've been looking through catalogs, and you can find the brass and the bullets and already loaded ammunition in catalogs. So
yes, well, if you can get it, let's see, bullets are available for reloading.
Yeah, and the brass and
yes.
whatever.
I don't know if there are, but are they available if you're not a reloader?
Yes, complete cartridges are available in catalogs too. So
okay, do you have any idea what the general price of the gun is?
Well, I'm looking at an ad for an unissued number 4 Mark II, and it's been kept in storage for years. It's a UK manufacturer, Enfield number 4 Mark II rifle, and they're in absolute mint condition in their original protective cosmoline, and the price is $149.87.
Well, by goodness, you better go buy a dozen.
I'd say.
But you can't beat that.
I think the ammunition is relatively common. It's a military rifle, never been issued, and, you know, if they've never been issued, then they're brand new. Well,
they should be good. Well, the Enfield is a good rifle. It was used at least through the First World War, and I think the Second World War, too. See, the British didn't have the finances to just change rifles every war.
No, but I'm finding out that there are quite a few of these unissued or in very good or excellent or new condition British rifles all over the place.
Yes,
some are made in Australia and some are made in the United Kingdom.
Well, I'd get one. Of course, I still prefer the 30-06, and my favorite rifle is the M1 30-06 Garand.
Yeah, but it's hard to find those wrapped in cosmoline.
Yeah, well, I guess so. But if you can get one, that's a good one. And, of course, you've got your 30-06 standard ammo for it.
That's true, too. I'm looking for one. If you hear of someone who has...
Well, they're usually in the Shotgun News and just about every gun show. I think you should, whenever there's a gun show, you ought to try to go there because it's a supermarket of weaponry.
Yeah, that's true, too. But it's hard to find M1 Garands in excellent shape.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to find one that's wrapped, that's in its original wrappings and protected with cosmoline. So.
Well, you would want to look down the barrel of it, and if the barrel is good, I should say that's... See, just because a gun might have been used in the war, that wouldn't necessarily mean that it had been shot a whole lot. So you examine the barrel, and if the barrel is nice and shiny, there's a good chance that maybe it never went out of the country.
Okay, well, I thought you'd like to know.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, bye for now.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, the number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Yes, I called you, about having a constitution for a government. Did you have any other suggestions than using a contract for a government?
I think the best contract for a government is to make sure that no one can vote or in any way have any influence on a government unless he has good mind and he's a decent person.
But the oath of office does away with that. If you give oath to the Constitution, you've got a dictatorship of a contract. And if this contract that you have sworn to defend and uphold protects your natural freedoms and lives under the laws of nature, nature's God, and people say they don't know what they are giving up. They don't know.
Well, what are they giving up? Tell me, what have people given up?
Well, all right, let me ask you this then, before I answer that. What is your inheritance now?
A good mind.
Well, okay, then if you don't have a good mind, then you're to be eliminated. This is some kind of a dictatorship.
Genetically, I would say, genetically.
If God keeps you alive.
I don't know about that. There are so many gods. Which God do you mean?
Well, it's in the Declaration of Independence, called the Laws of Nature and Nature's God.
Well, we go by the separation of church and state.
I don't.
Well, then bless your heart. I don't need to argue with you, but...
Well, you see, now listen, there are a lot of names for governments. Have you ever heard of a name of government?
Well, this is a family program.
The name of a government?
Come again?
One of the names of government is sin. In other words, the Romans discovered that the word government should be used to tell you who to obey. And then they set up rules and laws. And have you read Frederick Bastiat?
No.
He says that the law is force. And
well, yes,
also
it is.
Another book that said that the man that made the first law was a socialist. So you've got a contradiction here of man-made laws versus laws of nature. You go by the laws of nature in what you're selling and what you're trying, and that you have to go with that law. If you don't understand that law, you're dead duck to begin with. And you see, we obey all the laws of nature. Every breath you take is to keep your credit good with the laws of nature and nature's God. And under the true religion, if you borrow money from these money changers, these money creators, and you breathe every breath you take to get their money back to them and pay them back with interest, you're serving two masters.
Well, it's best not to borrow money. It's best to create your own business so that you don't need to borrow money.
Okay, now man has he's created measurements, and you find a Bureau of Standards in Washington. Man has created language, which if we don't use it properly, we can't understand each other.
Yeah, well, I know, but we could go through the whole litany of that. Get to your point.
Well, my point is that the republic that we're living under is a form of government which protects your natural rights.
Well, we had a republic, but the idiots turned it in for a democracy.
Well,
so
not for me it didn't, but it may have for you. Now, democracy means the majority rules.
Well, the majority voted in Clinton.
What?
The majority voted in Clinton.
No, they didn't. Majority is like 51%.
Well, the majority of the voters voted in Clinton.
Well, you see, the people didn't even select Clinton.
Well, I don't care who selected him. Once they saw him and once they knew he was an idiot.
He gave the oath of office.
Well, I don't care what he gave.
If you don't read the contract, how can you keep his nose in the oath of office?
I didn't vote for him. I'm not responsible.
Well, you certainly are.
No, I'm not.
But you've given the oath of office to vote.
No, I haven't.
Vote?
No.
Well, well, even if you don't vote, you have an inheritance of living in this country which has a republican form of government. Now, you can go to your dictionary, and you won't even find the meaning of a republic. A republic is nothing but a contract government.
Well, I know, but wait.
The unions say, that labor unions say...
Well, look, I've got to make room for somebody else.
Yeah,
you call
you
again.
Much.
You call again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Phone number is 501-437-2963, and the mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And for $10, you'll get a great big information packet, material that will just keep you fascinated for many hours, open the door to all kinds of opportunities whereby you can take care of yourself and your loved ones. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Yeah, hello, Kurt. I know your last caller there was Stan from Florida, and I'm just afraid that Stan doesn't realize that the Constitution, for all intents and purposes, is about dead.
Yes, well, bless his heart, he means well. And
I know, Stan, he's right. He's living about 200 years too late, I think.
Yes.
Is his problem. But, he's right in principle, but Stan, the Constitution is, for all intents and purposes, dead. Either we're going to have to fight to get it back or something, but you pretty much be preaching to the choir to a lot of these people out here. On that guy who called about the 303 Enfields, the bullet is not actually a 30 caliber. It's just slightly larger. I think it's about 311 in diameter instead of 308.
Yes.
You can probably get along with just using 30 caliber bullets to reload, but your accuracy might suffer a bit.
Yes.
And the ammunition, being British ammunition, it's Berdan prime, so if you try to reload it, it's a major, major hassle. It can be done, but you're better off finding maybe a 1917 Enfield, which will chamber 30-06.
Well, I don't think he stated the date it was made.
Right, but the Enfields that he's talking about that fire 303 are not the same thing as, say, as a 1917 Enfield, which the United States made for Britain because they didn't have enough way to build arms during World War I and such, and we were already making some 303 type rifles, so we started making 1917 Enfields for our troops, in fact, and they're chambered in 30-06, and you can find 30-06, like you say, just about anywhere, and the ammunition is easily reloadable if you want to get into that.
Well, now, would these $150 Enfields shoot 30-06?
No, the 303 is a rimmed cartridge, and the 30-06 is a rimless.
Oh.
You can take the rifle and maybe convert it, say, to a Magnum type round if you wanted to, if you wanted to have some sort of hunting rifle, or you could use 303. But the ammunition, as far as finding reloadable boxer primed, is going to be kind of an expensive proposition.
Yes.
So you're better off, I'd say, if you can get a ton of 303 British, of loaded surplus ammo and store it, that's fine. But if you end up with a rifle and you don't store enough ammunition for it, you're going to find it's a big hassle to try to reload it or find ammunition once ammunition becomes scarce.
Yes. Well, I should suppose that for $150, a British Enfield would be nice if you do have a good supply of ammunition. However, I would still recommend the standard 30-06. Even the 30-06 hunting rifle is a
right. Yeah, I have an M1
gun.
Garand, which is just a great target rifle, and I guess if push comes to shove, you could use it to put a little meat in the freezer and self-defense.
Well, I don't know why you seem to have reservations about it. I mean,
just the bolt-action rifle is for hunting. I just generally with the scope is great to have a scope on a rifle, and the Garand is not really set up to use a scope. It's a good self-defense rifle.
Yes.
But like I said, the 303 is a good round, and it's very popular, say, in Canada and such. But it's just the reloading side of it becomes a little sticky sometimes.
Yes. Well, it's.
Well, maybe somebody else can squeeze in there.
Well, we don't know. No, we don't have time. So keep talking.
Oh, sorry about. I just really want to call out. I know Stan, the man who called before. I think we've lost the Constitution already. Our people in the past generations, through the 30s and in the teens, 1913, the Federal Reserve and all that.
Yes.
It's just
Well, there's been so many amendments to the Constitution made for people that would not have been allowed to live by our founding fathers that they've really messed it up. Incidentally, I've gotten a message here. Fulton Armory builds new... Well, let's see. Which is which? Olin makes bore boxer primed in 303 brass. My...
Right, you can find it, but like I say, it's finding 30-06 has been around for years, and a lot of the brass companies manufacture it in bulk, and you can get it pretty cheap. Whereas since the 303 is not nearly as popular as 30-06, the brass will be more expensive, only because they don't make the millions of rounds of it. It's kind of they have to tool up to make it, and if they don't sell as much of it, it's going to be more expensive.
Oh, because of any confusion, my engineer hands me notes. See?
That's okay.
He's a gun expert, and sometimes I can't read his writing.
He's scrawling it real fast, I'm sure.
Yes. Okay, it's about that time. Look, thanks a whole lot for hanging in there.
All right.
Okay, bye for now. Now it's sign-off time. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So this is Kurt Saxon saying goodbye and be good.